Someone you love dies. What do? You probably pay a stranger to burn or bury them, like everyone does. But 300,000 years ago, the answer was something completely different. We assume that early humans were simple, that survival consumed everything, and when someone died, you moved on. Makes sense, right? Except that's not what happened. What actually happened tells us something strange, something that archaeologists spent decades refusing to believe, because it didn't fit the story we had about who our ancestors were. They weren't simple, they were obsessed with their dead, and the things they did across dozens of cultures, across hundreds of thousands of years, range from deeply moving to genuinely disturbing. Some of the most disturbing ones are still practiced today, and we're saving those for the end. Let's go through them. The price of the afterlife. Some cultures took their belief in the afterlife so seriously that they decided the dead shouldn't have to go alone. In the royal tombs of Ur, in ancient Mesopotamia, archaeologists uncovered mass graves, not of enemies or criminals, but of servants, guards, musicians, and ladies in waiting. Dozens of people had been buried alongside their ruler, dressed in their finest clothes, holding their instruments, arranged as if ready to serve, and they hadn't been killed violently. They had walked in, taken a drink, probably poison, and lain down willingly. Because if the king needed servants in this life, he would need them in the next, and apparently people believed that deeply enough to die for it. This wasn't only in Mesopotamia. Similar findings appear in ancient China, in Egypt, across cultures that never had contact with each other. Everywhere humans believed in something after death, some of them also believed the dead needed company to get there. Homo naledi. This one isn't disturbing, at least not in the obvious way. Homo naledi is a species of early human discovered in South Africa in 2013. Small brain, primitive body, and by every measure we had, not capable of complex thought. And yet, deep inside a cave system called the Rising Star, down narrow passages that are almost impossible to reach, archaeologists found hundreds of Homo naledi bones that had been carefully placed and deliberately arranged. These weren't people who fell in, there are no predator marks, no signs of flooding. Someone had carried these bodies deep into the dark and left them there on purpose. The team that discovered this spent years fighting to get it published, because the conclusion seemed impossible. A creature with half our brain size was performing something that looked like burial ritual 300,000 years ago. Think about what that actually means. That impulse, that refusal to just leave the dead behind, was already there before language, before religion, before us. It's something much older than humanity. The Skull Keepers. Multiple prehistoric cultures across Europe and the Middle East did something that took archaeologists a long time to understand. When someone died, they removed the skull, not immediately, but after the flesh had decomposed, they came back. They took it, polished it, sometimes filled the eye sockets with shells or repainted it with red pigment, and then they kept it. For years, sometimes decades, these weren't trophies. They were kept with care, passed down, treated as sacred objects, because the best explanation we have is that these people simply weren't ready to let go. The skull was a way to keep the person present, to still have them in the room, to still talk to them in whatever way they talked to things that couldn't answer back. We don't know exactly what they said, but they clearly had something to say. Çatalhöyük. 10,000 years ago, in what is now Turkey, thousands of people lived packed together in mud brick houses with no streets and no doors at ground level. You entered through a hole in the roof, and under the floor of every house, directly beneath where the family slept, cooked, and lived out their daily lives, were the bodies of their dead. Not in a cemetery somewhere outside the walls, but under the floor, sometimes just a few centimeters below where the children played. Archaeologists found them in layers, grandparents, children, generations of the same family, buried beneath the same patch of earth, while the living went about their lives directly above. They didn't move away when someone died. They stayed. We don't know if sleeping above your dead ancestors felt like protection, or whether leaving them alone somewhere else was simply unthinkable to these people. But we know they did it for over 1,000 years, which means that at some point, it stopped feeling strange. The Watchers. In the mountains of Papua New Guinea, the Anga people arrived at a completely different solution. They didn't bury their dead at all. Instead, they smoked the bodies for weeks over low fires until the flesh was preserved and hardened, then dressed them, gave them weapons, and placed them on cliffsides above the village, arms outstretched, looking down over the community they had belonged to. Some of these mummies are over 200 years old, and they're still there today. The idea was straightforward: the dead don't leave. They watch, they protect, they stay part of the community, just from a different position. When you walk through the village, the ancestors are looking down at you from the rock face above. For the Anga, that wasn't unsettling, that was a comfort. Gough's Cave. Now we get to the part that's harder to talk about. Gough's Cave in Somerset, England, 14,000 years ago. Archaeologists found human bones there, a lot of them. And when they studied them closely, they found something that took a long time to accept. The bones had been processed, with cut marks where the flesh had been carefully removed and spiral fractures where the marrow had been extracted. And 3 skulls had been shaped, smoothed along the edges, and turned into cups. This was cannibalism, but not survival cannibalism. There was plenty of food available, and the animals they hunted were abundant. This was ritual. The leading theory, supported by similar findings across multiple sites, is that consuming the body of someone you loved was a form of honor, a way of taking their strength into yourself, of keeping them alive inside you, literally. Some cultures believed that if you buried the dead in the ground, their power was lost, wasted, eaten by worms. But if you consumed them, their courage, their wisdom, their spirit became yours. We find this disturbing. They would have found our way disturbing, putting people in boxes, in the cold ground, alone. Sky burial. And this isn't only ancient history. In Tibet, there is a funeral practice that has been performed for over 1,000 years, and it's still practiced today. When someone dies, the body is carried to a high mountain plateau where a specialist called a Rogyapa cuts the body open, breaks the bones, and mixes the flesh with barley flour and yak butter. And then the vultures come, sometimes hundreds of them, and within an hour, nothing is left. This is called sky burial, and to the Tibetan Buddhist communities who practice it, it is not disturbing. It is the kindest thing you can do for someone. The vultures carry the soul upward, the body returns to nature completely, nothing is wasted, and nothing is trapped. To them, sealing a body in a box underground is the strange choice, keeping it, locking it away, refusing to let it go. The Toraja. In the highlands of Sulawesi, Indonesia, there is a people called the Toraja who have a relationship with death, unlike anything else on earth. When someone dies, they don't hold a funeral, not yet. The body stays in the house, in the family's bedroom, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. They bring it food, they bring it water, they talk to it and introduce it to guests. Because the dead person is not gone, they are simply, in the Toraja worldview, very sick, but still present. When the family has saved enough money for a proper ceremony, the funeral happens, and it is enormous. Hundreds of guests and days of celebration. But that's not the strangest part. Every few years, the Toraja perform a ritual called Manin, in which the bodies of ancestors, some decades old, are exhumed, cleaned, and dressed in fresh clothes, then walked through the village while family photographs are taken with the dead. To outsiders, this is incomprehensible. To the Toraja, leaving your dead alone in the ground and never seeing them again is the incomprehensible thing. The thread. Here's what connects all of this. Homo naledi, carrying bodies into the dark. Skull keepers polishing the faces of the dead. Families sleeping above their dead for 1,000 years. Mummified ancestors watching over a village from a cliffside. Servants walking willingly into a tomb. People consuming the ones they lost. Vultures on a mountain plateau in Tibet. A grandmother in Sulawesi, dressed in fresh clothes, walked through her village one more time. None of this is logical, and all of it is completely human. Every single one of these cultures was doing the same thing, refusing to let go. The specific rituals are different, but the impulse behind them is identical. You lose someone, and something in you insists that this cannot simply be over, that there has to be something more, some way to hold on. We still feel that, all of us, every time, we've just outsourced the ritual to strangers and a hole in the ground and a headstone with dates on it, which, if you think about it, is its own kind of strange. What early humans did with their dead disturbs us because it's unfamiliar. But the reason they did it, that part is not strange at all. That part we understand completely. If you want to keep going, what early humans actually found attractive and why some of it still affects who you fall for today, that video is up next.